Through the Line, advertising underlined.
Indlebe,
amehlo, indololwane,
indalulwane,
ahoy,
indalulwane.
No, listen, baby. You must say it right, Nick. Let's try this again. Watch me when I'm saying indololwane. Say it again.
Indalulwane.
Welcome to another episode of Through the Line, our online content channel that speaks everything advertising, media, branding, and communications. Today we'll be addressing a social ill that plagues our country, xenophobia. And to speak to us about that is Patience Zhu from Save the Children. Patience, welcome.
Thank you for having me, Isabella.
Thank you so much, Patience. Before we start, Patience, I'd like you to just tell the viewers at home a little bit about who Save the Children are.
Thank you. So Save the Children South Africa is an independent child rights and development organization. We are an international organization that operates in 120 countries in the world. We are a child rights organization. Basically, we fight for children's rights, and we ensure that children have got a voice in anything that has to do with them and about them. We work in 5 thematic areas. We work in child rights governance, where we work with governments, municipalities to ensure that when they are planning for the country, they also do plan for children. We work in health and nutrition, where we ensure that the health and nutrition of children is strengthened and improved and no child is left behind. And currently, in our strategic period, we are focusing mainly on comprehensive sexuality education and sexual reproductive health and rights. And we also work in child protection. In child protection, we are working to ensure that no child is abused. We work to ensure that children know their rights and they're able to report any form of abuse. And this is where our work in migration and displacement is placed. So in migration and displacement, we are also focusing on the rights of migrant children in the country. Then we work in education. In education, we are basically focusing in this strategic period on early childhood care and development, where we are supporting the government of South Africa with the shift of ECD centers from the Department of Education to the Department of Social Development.
That is so interesting. I mean, you guys obviously seem to do a lot, especially for children, which I think is God-sent. And congratulations on that, as Save the Children. And, you know, I mean, we looked at this campaign that is very much moving, you know, if for lack of a better word. So, I mean, you're speaking on xenophobia with this campaign. You speak to xenophobia and obviously xenophobia amongst children. Can you please just take us through the process of where you found the inspiration to spearhead such a campaign?
Okay. So basically, I think if you look and if you follow media, when we speak about discrimination of migrants and we talk about xenophobic attacks, in most instances, we are focusing only on adults. But this kind of social ill also impacts on children. It impacts on children in terms of them. They are scared of sharing where they come from. Some of them, because they are running away from violence in the countries that they are coming from, they are re-traumatized when they experience and they see there is burning of people, there is violence in the country, so the children also become scared. The children also relive the kind of violence that they are running away from the countries that they are coming from. So it is a campaign that we really wanted to show that every child is a child, and we wanted to show that every child in the country also has got the right to services. The child has got a right to go to school. The child has a right also to universal birth registration and all the other rights. And this is coming even from the Constitution of South Africa, which says every child on the soil of South Africa has got the following rights, and it includes migrant children that are in the country. When you also go even into the Children's Act, it also says the same. So a child is a child despite where they are coming from. So that is what we wanted to try and show, that in as much as we are talking about xenophobia, even in as much as we are talking about violence between adults, but it also really affects children.
Sure, that's quite a mouthful, Patience. So, and also very interesting. So tell me, with this campaign, have you guys managed to actually achieve the objectives that this campaign has set out to achieve?
Okay. So with campaigns, we believe that they don't give instant achievements, but they are processes. So with this particular campaign, we do believe that the education that we want to raise in communities is being received. And we continue to work together with other partners that are working to ensure that migrant children are not discriminated. And we work to ensure that migrant children are included in policies and anything that has to do with the strengthening of their access to rights and services in the country. So far, we've been receiving responses in terms of how we can support and strengthen the tolerance of migrant children in communities and in services.
And how's that response been like, or rather those measures?
So in most instances, because we do work with community-based volunteers that do community education, and they also do school talks where they go to schools and they are educating children on issues to do with non-discrimination, because we know that non-discrimination is one of the key principles of children's rights. So this is to ensure that in schools, migrant children, they are not bullied, they are not excluded, they are not called names, but in trying to bring cohesion within the young people and ensure that they really understand that people migrate for different reasons, and at the same time also to understand that migration is not a problem, but a phenomenon that needs to be managed properly.
Yes. And tell me something, Patience, are there any government interventions that one can actually collaborate with to end this scourge?
So I think our government has been responsive. We do know that there is the National Plan of Action to Combat Racism. It also includes xenophobia and other hate crimes. So having that action plan is a step in the right direction. I think it's just an issue of really delegating responsibilities to each government department or any relevant arm of the government to ensure that the issues of xenophobia or any other hate crime are really put into practice and are promoted in the communities.
Patience, which parts of our country do you find this phenomenon to be most prevalent? And in your opinion, why?
Okay, so I think in terms of where do we find the phenomenon of xenophobia in the country, I would say it just depends in terms of, are we talking about attitudinal xenophobia, which is quite common all over the country, and then we can look at the actual physical kind of xenophobia, the violence, the burning of people, the burning of tires, that we also see commonly in the country. So in terms of why, I do think it's an issue of lack of education around why people come into the country, lack of education in terms of understanding why people migrate, because you can realize that very few people understand that even South Africans also do migrate to other countries for various reasons, be it greener pastures, be it better jobs, be it better education. And we do need each other, I think, as a people on the continent or worldwide, because that is how we're going to strengthen our economies. So that is one kind of thing that we have seen, that there's lack of education in the communities on why people migrate. Some of the people that do come into the country, they are also running away from violence in their countries. And South Africa is a signatory to legislation such as the International Refugee Law that allows people to seek refuge and protection in another country.
So, Patience, you just mentioned something very interesting, that there's something called attitudinal xenophobia. You know, we all understand physical xenophobia, which is what you just mentioned, burning of tires, protest, and all of that stuff. I mean, how can we change people's attitudes towards this then?
I think in terms of changing or shifting attitudes, it's an issue of maybe we should concentrate on the positives, because in most instances we tend to think that every South African is xenophobic. We do have great people that are working very closely with migrants. And if we really zoom into such works that the people are doing in the community, working hand in hand with migrants, it is an issue that can also show those that might have different opinions around migrants and change the way that they think. That's a start. And the other thing also is to build social cohesion within our communities. How do we do that? We can think of having activities such as maybe soccer, such as maybe activities that include both migrant communities and the host communities, in this case, who are South African citizens, just to ensure that we can coexist, and just to ensure that even some of the social ills that we see in the community, be it crime, be it substance abuse, if we come together as both migrants and citizens in our communities, then we can build something quite positive. So it's an issue of also building empathy and thinking for the next person, that we can really work together and also be documenting stories of how citizens and migrants are in coexistence in communities, and then we can change the attitudes of other people, that they can see it's doable.
Actually, I like the thought of that. And, you know, with the TVC, or rather the commercial that we are actually interrogating and that we've looked at, you know, I think what you guys have done there is really, really powerful. I mean, yes, it's a TVC, but what other supporting communication is out there that supports this phenomenon, or rather that speaks to this phenomenon of ending xenophobia?
So as Save the Children, we have worked with the Discovery TV channel, where we were documenting the work of partners that we have worked with as Save the Children. And one that comes in particular in mind is the story of a center in Winterveld that was started by a South African woman, where she would bring around children from the community, including migrant children that were struggling to get into school. And she started this center by just giving them access to reading books, but it has grown really big. This is a South African mother that has seen the plight of migrant children in a community. And that film is there on YouTube. It's work that was done to promote also positive attitudes and changing the mindset and the narrative in terms of how migrants are viewed in the country, and also to run away from the generalization to just think that every South African doesn't like migrants, but really to show that there is an element of cohesiveness. If we can pursue that, then we can do away with the attitudes of hatred and intolerance.
I like that. Maybe we should be your communication partners when it comes to obviously all of that stuff, educating communities about obviously xenophobia and obviously trying to end the scourge. But that's a conversation of another day. So tell me something. Do you perhaps have foresight of how the organization Save the Children deals and handles the number of victimized foreigners that they've provided asylum for?
Okay. So as Save the Children, we do not work on our own. We do work with partners. So we've got different partners in the different provinces that we work. And just to give a recap, to say we are based here in Gauteng. That's where we have our head office. We've got field offices in Limpopo. We've got another field office in KwaZulu-Natal. We've got presence in Mpumalanga province as well as in the Free State. So in all these different parts, we do have partners, and we partner with organizations such as the Consortium for Refugees and Migrants. We partner with organizations such as Lawyers for Human Rights and government departments. So in most instances, we are having community conversations where we meet and we sit with be it ward councillors, be it migrant communities, community leaders in the different exact communities that we work in, just to encourage and to have conversations on what are the challenges, what are the issues in terms of the coexistence between migrants and host communities that are South African citizens, and just what can be done. What are some of the community plans that we can develop to ensure that this scourge of violence of one against the other is reduced? So we do have those conversations, and we also, because of the work that we do as Save the Children, which is focused on children's rights, we are also looking basically on how we can make communities that are not violent, because a child that is raised in a violent community become violent themselves when they grow up.
True.
So we're just looking at how we can raise children in non-violent communities, and in those conversations also touching on the different human rights that needs to be projected in our communities.
I like that you've touched on that. You know, raising a kid in a violent community holds the chances of them becoming violent. So tell me something. Psychologically, are kids mostly affected by this on their own or through families or parents?
Okay. So in terms of how children can be affected psychologically, I think I mentioned earlier that some of the children that we work with, they are running away from war, from their countries of origin. So each time there is a violent spate in the country, they are re-traumatized. They think of the violence that they've run away from. From the children that we have worked with, when we have asked them how they think and how they feel about xenophobia, a lot of them would talk about memories of where they come from. And also one other aspect I think that we do not touch on a lot in our communities, that we have more and more children that are migrating on their own, running away from their families because of violence in the home, where we are using corporal punishment, and because children feel that there is more and more violence, then they run away from the home. So when we look at the concept of maybe the violent xenophobia, because I really want to focus on that, it is an issue where the children, they become scared. Some of them, even when they are in school, they might be afraid to identify as a child that is not coming from South Africa or not born to South Africans. And that itself would mean these children become withdrawn. These children will be scared even to talk to other children. But ordinarily, I think, even as Nelson Mandela said, that love is something that comes naturally, but hate is something that can be taught.
Yes.
So it's the same thing. We would ask questions to say, what are we telling children in our homes when it comes to migrants? If we are attacking migrants and we're saying negative things about migrants, and this same child go to school, and they find a Zimbabwean, they find a Congolese, they find a Nigerian in school, how are they going to react? How are they going to interact with such people that we are labeling badly in our own homes, in our own conversations as a family? So it is an issue of educating a child who can be empathetic, a child who can be loving, a child who is peaceful and doesn't do violence. So we want to encourage safer families for all children in the country, and we can do this with how we parent and we raise and we speak to our children, because children just learn from how we speak and how we act around them.
For sure, I like that. And how do you plan to ease this burden from a sociological point of view, seeing that you guys have positioned yourself as a change agent?
So I think for me, I emphasize on community education. I emphasize on media. Let's use the media to say, if we are reporting in the media, why are we only focusing when people are fighting and burning each other? Why don't we also focus on the stories that I've shared, like the woman in Winterfeld who's working and promoting children's lives despite of where they come from. I mean, there are a lot of other South African citizens that work very well with migrants in the country. Why don't we put our eye on those, project them, and show our people that it can be done? We can coexist peacefully, and we can do wonders for the children, because it's the children that we want to raise in a non-violent way. So we can educate families, we can educate our communities, and we can also change our policies to be responsive to the needs of children. Because if children are raised in a discriminatory way, they are taught discrimination, they are taught hate. But we want children to learn in an environment that they know we can coexist with whoever is around us.
Patience, I think this interview has been very, very insightful. I think you've really given us something to take home. And, we would really like to find out more in terms of what's in future for Save the Children, or rather, what's out there for Save the Children? What can we look out for?
Okay. So as I mentioned that we work in different themes as Save the Children. We do a lot of awareness campaigns monthly in the different themes that we work in. In the theme around migration and displacement, we are going to have a roadshow where we are raising awareness on birth registration and documentation of children in the country. We are going to have that roadshow in Limpopo. We are also we do child rights awareness days, where we are talking on health and nutrition of children. And I do know that we are going to have a child rights awareness day in KwaZulu-Natal. Also here in Gauteng, often we also do a lot of campaigns raising awareness on issues of child protection, protecting children against abuse. And also we have a lot of activities where we include children themselves to raise their voices. So in terms of partnering with you guys in the media, it's mostly just giving space to young people for them to share what are their views around any phenomenon that is happening in our community and in our society, just for the children to really share what are their prospects, because we do find that in most instances, children are not given the space to air their voices on issues that affect them. So that is also one unique area of the work that we do as Save the Children, to ensure the participation of children. So it would have been lovely, even in this conversation, if we had a child to speak on how they felt about xenophobia and what are some of the solutions that they can give to us as adults, because children can do that.
They definitely can, and maybe it's something we should look at in our next interview.
Yeah.
And Patience, I think what you've shared with us is very, very insightful. I think it's very important for us to obviously be aware of Save the Children as an organization, and be aware of obviously what affects not only the children, but the country in its entirety when it comes to scourges like this, xenophobia and obviously violence that take place and all of that. So I think we really appreciate your time and obviously for coming out here and giving us this information that is very, very valuable, and obviously educating us a little bit about institutional xenophobia as well as physical xenophobia, which I think a lot of people didn't really understand or didn't really know. And for that, thank you so much for being on Through the Line. And yeah,
Thank you, Sabel, for having us.
And ladies and gentlemen, that is Patience Joe from Save the Children. Please like and subscribe our channel Through the Line on YouTube. Until next time, thank you.
Indlebe,
Indlebe,
amehlo,
amehlo,
indololwane,
indalulwane,
avoid
indo, indalulwane,
No, listen, baby. You must say it right, Nick. Let's try this again.
indilu,
Watch me when I'm saying Say it again.
indalulwane.
Through the Line. Advertising underlined.